Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Reddit Reading on Media Mania. On today's topic, Ask Reddit. Babysitters, what's the most unsettling thing that's happened while you were babysitting? My sister was babysitting, and I got a screaming panic call from her. She was putting one child down for the night, a girl around 3, I think, and the little boy, around 6, stopped playing, grabbed a chair, unlocked the front door, and left the apartment. She was distraught. I told her to call 911 and I'd come help her with the toddler. When I got there, the police were talking to her and wrapping up. Thankfully, even though it was dark, 2 older women had been out for a walk and found him wandering down the sidewalk of one of the busiest roads in town. The weirdest thing is that the parents were completely unfazed. They apologized for not telling her he had done it before and wanted her to babysit again. My sister never babysat again. I was babysitting a 4 or 5-year-old boy who was adamant that he wanted McDonald's for dinner. I joked that he would have to use bread ties to pay for it because I was a poor student at this point. He often played in his room, so I thought nothing of it when he disappeared for 5 minutes. He quietly left the house through the back door, opening the very large back gate and crossing a main road in a sketchy suburb. As I walked down the street looking for him, an old man in a car asked if I was looking for a boy, and I said yes. He gave me a lift to the section of the road that he saw him at, and I was able to jump out and grab him. No word of a lie, he had a bread tie in his hand to pay for the McDonald's. I'm a mom myself, and thinking about this story always makes me feel sick to my stomach. I could have been responsible for the death or abduction of this sweet little boy all because of a stupid comment that I made. A family from church asked my mom if I could babysit for them, so I had to. Soon after the parents left, sitting in their living room watching cartoons with both the kids, a boy and a girl, the little girl asked for some kind of elaborate snack or something, and I chuckled and said, "No, sorry." No expression on her face. The little girl stood up, crossed the living room to a crate that their large dog was locked in, released it, and told it to go after me, which it did. I remember that evil little kid cackling while this huge dog chased me in circles around the house, and that was the end of my babysitting career. When I was in high school, I used to babysit for a family that had a glass door off their kitchen, and whenever I'd get something out of their fridge for the kids, I'd think to myself how scary it would be if someone was just standing there looking in. One night, it was storming really bad, and I went to get one of the kids a glass of milk, and lightning flashed, and a filthy man I'd never seen was standing there framed in the glass door staring in. I screamed and yelled for the kids to go hide. Of course, they didn't listen and ran into the kitchen. Turns out it was their uncle stopping by to drop off something he had borrowed. He worked construction and had gotten quite muddy and was going to leave whatever it was by the door, which is when I saw him, so it ended up being a case of nothing, but the terror I felt when the lightning lit him up was pretty intense. That's basically a horror movie scene. The estranged husband showed up, drunk, demanding to see his kids, tried to break into the house. I called the wife and the police, never babysat for them again, even though the wife was very nice. It was just too traumatizing for it all. The husband moved away, I believe. Wife is remarried and much happier. So I used to babysit for the lady who lived next door to me a few years back. Her children's room was the bedroom that shared a wall with me. While putting the kids to bed, I heard someone moving around my bedroom. The walls were very thin. One of the children told me that they hear the noise a lot. My parents weren't home. I didn't want to go home. Babysitting my cousins when I was like 10, and the 3 of them were less than 5. Babysitting is in quotes because their mom was home, but I was in charge of them in the bedroom. She was in the living room with my oldest cousin. I was playing with one of them when the youngest, about 2, started coughing, holding his neck. I clearly remember just standing there for 5 seconds, stone cold, completely bewildered. I had no idea what to do. I just froze. Luckily, my oldest cousin somehow heard the baby choking, and he rushed in. He grabbed the baby and pulled a Barbie shoe out of his mouth, while I still stood there, shocked. I got an earful from my aunt and mom for nearly letting the baby die. I'll never forget it. I wasn't afraid, I wasn't scared, I didn't feel anything, I just froze. Let this be a lesson to never let 10-year-olds watch babies. They're just not equipped to deal with disaster, or at least I wasn't. You responded as most 10-year-olds would. That was a completely normal reaction. As a teenager, I was watching a 4-year-old and a baby for the first time when I got really dizzy and felt awful. I called my mom for help. She yelled at me for a bit and told me I'd have to call the parents to leave their date because she wasn't coming. I said they hadn't left a contact number and asked for help again. She told me to figure it out. I passed out trying to call 911. The last thing I remember before I fell asleep was that they had a pool and terror for the kids. I think they mean a terrace? I'm not sure. The 4-year-old put his sister in her car seat because she kept trying to go near the water and then stayed by me to wait for an adult to return. His mom's sister found me unconscious on the floor. She hit me and that brought me around enough to stagger to the car as long as I could lean on something. In retrospect, I'm sure she thought I was high. She offered no help and was livid as she drove me home. I was already a pretty depressed teen, and the shame at not being able to get help for the kids meant I got home and just sort of waited to see if whatever was making me collapse would get worse. I passed out again after getting home, threw up a few times, and then started getting better. I was woozy for several days after, still no idea about what caused that. I refused to babysit for anyone for months afterwards. The idea of what could have happened was horrifying. Going from okay to passed out on the floor while trying to dial 911 is the worst thing that ever happened to me while babysitting with that family. I live in a small town, and our prized possession is a rather large mental hospital. I got a call from the parents telling me to lock all the doors and windows because a dangerous patient had escaped and was in our neighborhood. I told the kids to stay inside, but didn't tell them the reason in order to not freak them out. I went to change a diaper, and when I got back, the oldest boy, about 8, was missing. I immediately started panicking and went to look in the backyard. He had decided that that was the perfect time to pee outside because the outside potty was better. Bonus, I babysat 2-year-old twins, and they often burped and farted at the same time. It was terrifying. I have a crazy aunt, and this was about 25 years ago. I was a teen, and I babysat a lot. One evening, she called and said her buddy needed a sitter ASAP, and I would be paid well for such short notice. She said they were about 6 and 8. Also, I was already watching my aunt's kid, who was almost 1. She came and took me to the guy's house, and I walk in carrying my little cousin on my hip. The guy thanks me and rushes off to his overnight shift. So it's pretty dim, and only a lamp is on. I'm still standing there holding my cousin, introducing myself to the kids, who are itching like crazy. I say, "What's wrong?" And the girl says, "We have lice." Oh my god, I was so freaked out and so glad I hadn't put my little cousin down yet. I grabbed the phone and called her mom to come get her ASAP. I said, "You need to call your friend and he needs to send someone else or get home because no way I am staying here." Aunt comes to pick up the baby, and I'm just standing in the living room waiting for the dad to come home. I can see into the kitchen, and I start seeing things moving, so I walk closer. There were roaches everywhere, and they weren't afraid. I was mortified. I didn't even say goodbye to the dad when he walked in. I just bolted to my aunt's car. I said, "Don't ever ask me to babysit for anyone like that ever again." I went home and showered for probably 2 hours. Was babysitting my niece. She started crying in her crib upstairs, so I paused Netflix and went up to check on her. The lights were completely off as to not wake her up more. As I was standing in this completely dark room soothing her, I heard voices downstairs in the living room talking about breaking in and taking things. I had been alone in the house. My cell phone was downstairs, and my sister wasn't coming home for another 4 hours. I was freaking the heck out. After what seemed like forever, I got up the courage to go check out the noise, only to find Netflix had unpaused, and it was a heist movie I was hearing. When I was around 17, I was babysitting my younger cousins. Their parents were going to a party and said they'd be home around 1 or 2 a.m., so I was just going to stay the night. After the girls went to bed, I went about making sure everything was locked, but the lock on the front door was stuck, and I couldn't lock it. I decided to just stay up on the couch until my aunt and uncle got home and watch TV. At some point after midnight, I was starting to doze off when I heard the door opening around the corner. I figured they must be home, so I sat up and stretched, then heard the door shut again. I thought, oh, maybe they left something in the car. Waited a few moments. Then it suddenly came back to me that I hadn't been able to lock that door. I jumped up and looked out the window, but couldn't see anything, being dark and all. I was so terrified and unsure if someone had snuck in, if they'd opened it and heard me moving about, so backed out, or if I just imagined it. I grabbed a big kitchen knife and checked every single room in that house multiple times, then sat in view of the door till they came home. I was the cool babysitter, so I got tons of requests from the kids in my area. My best friend used to watch 2 girls after school, but the girls always asked for me for weekend gigs when they had a choice. I'd sometimes fill in for her after school too if she was busy. It was wildfire season, and I was watching the girls while the mom was at a meeting, and the dad, a volunteer firefighter, was out trying to keep the whole countryside from burning down. This is before text alerts, around 99 or 2000. So we had to keep the radio or television on in case the weather shifted. My parents lived across the train tracks, a number of kilometers down the road, so they said if anything happened, they'd come get us. The winds picked up. The news was saying that the fire had shifted. Their house was in this grove of trees surrounded by completely torrid hayfields. Dad had left instructions to hose down the house if anything was headed our way. The girls and I packed up their favorite toys and books, family photo albums, snacks, and water, only what they could fit in their school bags, and sat by the door with a portable radio. It was pointless to try to get them to go to bed. This was all they could think about. but because I was the cool babysitter, aka I didn't tell them what to do, we were able to talk through the situation. What would happen if we had to go? What would happen to their house? Was Dad going to be okay? I had such sincere conversations with an 8 and a 6-year-old when I was 14 or 15, but the winds changed again. We left the bags by the door, and the girls were able to go to bed. I was still worried, but they went to bed. 10 p.m. couldn't come soon enough. After listening to the radio for what felt like an eternity, Mom came home and said that the dad was okay. That was a long summer. Wildfires still scare me. That's going to have to do it for this episode. If you guys liked this video, be sure to give us a like and a subscribe. It helps us out immensely, and it lets us know what kind of content you guys are interested in seeing. Until next time, peace.